Okay, so I'm here to make another little miscellaneous or weird video, astrology, to explain something known as Sade Sati, which is a phrase that you'll probably only will hear if you are into Vedic sidereal astrology, which is what my channel is mainly about. So, what is Sade Sati? Sade Sati is apparently this unique transit of Saturn when Saturn is 12th from the sun in your natal chart. When Saturn is 12th from your moon sign in your natal chart, and it lasts all the way up till Saturn is second from the sign, your moon sign in your chart. This is a 7.5 year long transit, and I'm gonna try to clarify what I just said. You probably think, huh? What does he mean? I'm gonna make it real simple. Let's say that you was born with your moon in Gemini. Sade Sati would begin when Saturn is transiting Taurus. Sade Sati would begin in Taurus. It'll still be going when Saturn goes into Gemini. And Sade Sati would last all the way up into Cancer, which would be the second sign from Gemini. And Sade Sati would end once Saturn hits Leo. So Sade Sati only is when Saturn transits, only three signs, which is the sign before your moon and the sign after your moon. After that, the period is over. Saturn stays in the sign for approximately 2.5 years, and this transit of Saturn that is known as Sade Sati lasts for 7.5 years. To reiterate this again, in case y'all might be lost, depending on your level of understanding and comprehension of astrology or whatever, I'll give you another moon sign. Let's say that your moon is in Pisces. Sade Sati will begin when Saturn is transiting Aquarius, and it would end once Saturn hits Taurus. Once it hits Taurus, it's over, because Sade Sati will only last for Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. If your moon was in Pisces when you was born and Saturn transits Aquarius, that is the transit of Sade Sati. So let's break down what the hell is supposed to happen during Sade Sati, during this period. Well, let's break down the name Sade Sati, because that's what the hell I did. And when I broke down what does Sade mean, I'm gonna go look at my phone for my notes and my little quick Google so I don't completely mess up. And apparently what Sade means is it means the honor bestows a crown. That's what this popped up when I typed in. What does Sade mean? S-A-D-E. It means honor that bestows a crown. So then I looked up what does Sati mean, because a whole lot of clarity and answers to things you don't know. There's a whole lot of meanings in names. You break down a name of something and you be like, that's what that means. This is what this whole thing is about. Apparently Sati means good woman when I Googled it. And you'll see when you Google it yourself if you decide to do research. Sati means good woman, or a chaste wife, or like a virgin woman, or sexually restrained woman. And apparently it's supposed to, the phrase is associated with an Indian custom of a wife immolating herself on the funeral fire of her dead husband. So I guess, there used to be some custom or tradition when the husband would die and his body gets just being cremated and fired. I guess the wife would join her husband. He died, well, she has no reason to live, so she'll die too. So with me breaking down the name Sade Sati from that perspective, I came to the conclusion that the transit of Saturn during this 7.5 year period has to deal with things in regards to, sacrifice and losses and transitions. Because if Sati is associated with maybe being a good woman or a chaste virgin woman, inversion, meaning like purity in a sense, and not just sexually deprived. And if it deals with sacrificial fires, I just associate all this with like periods of transitions and endings and death of sorts. But then the first part of this, transit name is Sadi. And Sadi apparently means, from when I googled it, honor that bestows a crown. So my interpretation is that through these transitions and deaths and endings and tribulations, you will gain honor and achievements and recognitions that is worthy of a king, or you could be elevated through these terrible transitions in your life during the period of Sadisati. Now, how Sadisati will affect you in your personal chart greatly varies on your personal chart, because you just can't blame all the effects that are happening to you on Saturn during this 7.5 year period, because you got to look at what other planets are transiting other houses in your chart, and you'll also have to pay attention to the Mahadasha that you're running, what major planetary time period you're running. All those other things will have a great influence on why you are experiencing maybe either wins or losses or whatever in certain areas of your life. They all not just going to be tied to this one specific transit of Saturn within your chart. And one thing that I found interesting, before I give my own personal experience, is that Sadisati begins when Saturn is 12th from the sign, from 12th from your moon sign in your chart. Now, 12th from any planet or 12th from any house is essentially the loss of that house, because the 12th house, or the number 12 or whatever, is originally associated with and connected to the 12th house in the birth chart, which is associated with foreign travels, foreign experiences, isolation, jail, imprisonment, hospitals, charitable work, all those type of things, the subconscious. So in the moon, because it's when Saturn falls 12th from the moon in your chart. The moon is very important, especially in Vedic sidereal astrology. The moon is very important, and I'll probably get into detail on why the moon is so important in another video. But essentially, the moon is associated with the mind and the emotions in your birth chart. And when you think about it, the moon is very important because the mind controls your body. You control the mind, you control the body. And this is why the moon is just such great in importance, because if the mind is affected, then how you perceive your life and how you experience life will be affected, because the brain controls the mind, not the body controls the brain. So anyway, I'll make a whole nother video probably eventually explaining the importance of the big three, which is the moon, the sun, and the rising sign and all that good stuff. But anyway, so with Saturn falling 12th from the moon in your chart, stereotypically, at least on paper, I would like to assume that would probably be the worst, maybe most impactful period that a person will experience. That might be the most unsettling in general period for someone who's experienced Sadisati, because it's going to have that 12th house energy, which is foreign isolation and travel and new foreign experiences. You might experience a whole bunch of those type of things. You might experience a whole bunch of those type of things during this period when Saturn falls 12th from your moon. And then when Saturn transits directly over the moon, when Saturn is transiting directly over the moon, you might experience things in relation to the sign and the nakshatra, because that's what's really important. You gotta know, for one, what sign is Saturn in, what nakshatra is Saturn in, what will be aspecting, what is transiting the Saturn, what is aspecting the Saturn for the transits, and just know just what house is the Saturn transiting in and what's influencing that Saturn, and that will give you great details and clues of what you experience during your Sadisati. But 12th from the moon, you'll probably experience some type of 12th house themes on top of whatever that sign and nakshatra the Saturn is in. When Saturn is directly sitting on top of the moon, well then in that case you gotta just pay attention to the things that are in relation to the house that the Saturn is transiting, and nakshatra and the sign and what's aspecting the Saturn and all that stuff. Those will be the things that you have to pay attention to and look out for. And then when Saturn is transiting the second from the moon, which would be the following sign after the moon, what is the second house associated with? The second house is associated with your personal finances, your savings, the family that you come from, your speech and all that good stuff. But essentially, second from any house in your birth chart, or second from any planet, or second from any house in your birth chart, is essentially the gain of that house. It's the outcome of that house. Like for example, easy example to quickly exemplify the point that I'm trying to make. It's like, look at the first house. The first house is you being born. That's your ascendant, right? The first house is your physical body. Well, after you're born, you come out the womb, you're given to the family, which is the second house, because the second house is associated with the family that you come from. So boom, the first house is the body, and second from the first house is the second house, which is your family. You're introduced to your family. After you're introduced to your family, you get the third house, which is your siblings and your neighbors and your friends. You come home, this is your family, this is your neighborhood. And then you got the fourth house, which is, the home and the mother taking care of you. And it's hard for me to connect the rest after that, but the second from every house is like the gain and the outcome of that house. So on paper, in general, in my opinion, Saturn being second, when Saturn is when doing this transit of Sadisati, and Saturn falls second from the sign that the moon is in, that is probably a period where you might start to make gains after those trials and tribulations, because the second from anything, for the most part, sort of like the gains and the outcome of that house and sign. So, yeah, like I said, you'll have to look at the house that the Saturn is transiting. You have to see what's aspecting that Saturn. See if Saturn is transiting over another planet, 12th or 2nd from the moon, and learn about the nakshatras. And those things will highlight the details of what might happen to you during your Sadisati. But I'm only highlighting and bringing up Sadisati because I've already experienced my Sadisati, and just to shine light on this, just to make new videos after my nakshatras and stuff. But what is my personal take on Sadisati? That's like the textbook definition of what Sadisati is. What was my own personal experience with Sadisati? Well, 7.5 years is a long time for anything to happen. Anything can happen within a span of 7.5 years. But when Saturn was 12th from my moon sign, and I got to pull up my phone so I can look up the exact dates of when Saturn was doing this transit, so I know what I was doing in that period of life. But when Saturn was 12th from the sign that my moon is in, only thing that I experienced is that I ended up, my job went out of business, or I believe my job was bought by another company, so therefore everyone at work got laid off. They got a severance package. I ended up quitting that job and working another job before, I was forcibly kicked out and stuff. So during the period of when Saturn was 12th from my moon sign, I ended up leaving one job and going to another one. I ended up getting my first car, and those was just about the most significant things that happened when Saturn was 12th from my moon sign. Nothing really crazy happened. Now, when Saturn transited directly over my moon, when it went into the next sign and transited directly over my moon, that, in my personal experience, was the most turbulent period of my life. That was a period where I was close to getting fired from the job that I was currently working at. That was a period where I, started to become interested in mysticism and spirituality. This was the period that pushed me towards tarot, and that made me get interested in tarot and healing crystals and all that stuff when Saturn was transiting in the sign directly over my moon. And I'm keeping it ambiguous because I don't feel like revealing my moon and my natal planets and stuff. I don't feel like doing that. But when Saturn was transiting directly over my moon, that was when I experienced a shakeup in my career and almost getting fired. That was a period where I, you know, got interested in mysticism and spirituality and healing crystals and tarot and stuff. And that was a period where I just had fallen outs with people who I was close with. And then when Saturn was second from the sign of my moon, when it went into the next sign that precedes the sign of my moon, that was a period where things wasn't really as turbulent. But it was also during that period that I became interested in astrology, and I wanted to start to learn and read about astrology. So also during that period, I ended up getting a second job, and I ended up also, one backtrack a bit, when Saturn was transiting the sign directly over my moon, I also got another car. I had to get a new car. But ultimately, during that 7.5-year transit of when Saturn was, 12th directly and second from my moon, the only thing that happened was that I ended up leaving one job, getting another one, got a car, got a second car, got interested into tarot, mysticism, occult, and astrology, and started making these little YouTube videos and stuff. And that was essentially it. Like I said, my worst period, which I don't feel like getting into long, lengthy psychological details about, was when Saturn was directly over my moon. But that doesn't mean that when Saturn is directly over your moon that your life is going to be the most roughest and turbulent either. Like I said, 7.5 years is a long time for anything to happen in anyone's life. And you just can't really specify and look at all of the events that unfold in your life just from this transit of Saturn. You gotta look at everything. So I don't know. That's essentially Sade Sati. Like I said, my personal opinion of Sade Sati is that it's a little bit over exaggerated, and people just tend to, at least beginner people who might be into astrology or whatever, they give too much negative focus on the negative implications of Saturn. Some people don't see no positive traits at all when it comes to the malefic planets, and they just focus on the negativity, and they end up poisoning themselves with psychological fear because they focus and just look out for all the negative things in their life during this transit, or when it comes to the negative, or when it comes to the malefic planets. But honestly, if you lived your life and you didn't know nothing about astrology, you didn't know nothing about Sade Sati, you would almost in general say the same thing as I did and be like, this period wasn't too bad. I didn't really experience nothing greatly traumatic or anything. But yeah, I'm talking in circles now. That is what Sade Sati is. That was my little personal experience with Sade Sati. I'm going to go look at my notes real briefly to make sure I didn't miss nothing in regards to Sade Sati. And no, I didn't. So if your Sade Sati was rough, like I said, pay attention to the transits. Pay attention to the nakshatra that Saturn was in. And see if during that period of Sade Sati, through your tribulations, did you come out and become, a better person? Did you make gains out of those tribulations? Because I know that, like in Greek mythology, Saturn is associated with the Titan god Kronos, and Kronos ate his kids, who was like Zeus or whatever, and then Zeus freed his siblings and killed his father, and he essentially ate his kids, and they ended up getting freed, and they was gods. So Saturn, from a Greek mythological perspective, as I probably explained in my Saturn through transits videos, Saturn through houses videos is that Saturn can cheer you up, spit you out, and make you a god in a metaphorical sense in regards to the significations of the house and sign that Saturn is in when it is in your chart or when it is transiting. So Sade Sati can probably do the same thing. It could chew you up, spit you out, and you can either lay at the pit of the beast, or you can free yourself from the belly of the beast. Sade Sati, now that I'm speaking now, sort of reminds me of the Eight of Swords in tarot. You know, one of the cards that they have is the Eight of Swords, which traditionally is a woman who's like blindfolded, and she is surrounded by 8 swords. And the whole general purpose and message of the card is that it represents someone who feels as though that they are trapped and imprisoned and that they can't get out. But really, they're not in prison at all. It's just all in their mind. They can easily get out of this self-imprisonment that they put themselves in. They let their mind be defeated. And like I said, Saturn in Sade Sati, it begins when Saturn is 12th from the moon. Moon is the mind. Moon is very important. The moon, the emotions, the thoughts, they control the actions of the body. So if the mind is going through a whole lot of, hard times and tribulations and stuff, you'll naturally feel as though in your life that your life is falling apart and that life is hard. When sometimes life can be hard, but it ultimately depends on how you perceive it. It depends on your mental state that depicts and decides whether your life or situation is hard and whatnot. And I sort of lost my train of thought, but I'm pretty sure y'all feel what I'm coming from. Don't give too much negative emphasis on Sade Sati. Sade Sati can probably make you elevate in life. And then you gotta, like I said, look at the Mahadashas and stuff. But I'm gonna stop talking in circles. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight on what Sade Sati is. It's a pretty simple concept that I just try to make deep and complicated by over explaining it. But see you when I make my next video, and thanks for watching.